Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming by. This is Chris Petri. We are going to have an exciting time painting this beautiful antique shop. This is located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, close by to where I live in New Jersey in the USA. This is called Curtains and Lace, and it's a beautiful antique shop. I visit there often, and especially in the spring and in the fall. Great place to just unwind, have a great time. There's all farmlands out there and markets and fresh produce markets and antique shops and places to rest and sightsee and beautiful farms. I take pictures, I paint out there. So I'm just trying to bring that wonderful feeling of when I go out there, I'm interested. I paint, I draw, I sketch. I have a great time. So this is just the painting. Let's take a look. If you can take a picture of this or do a screen capture with your electronic device, or if you can set this up across from you when you work, if you have a device you can put on pause, and then you can work from this, that's the best way to go. Or if you can maybe save it, take a picture of it, save it, and then print it on a printer, and then have a hard copy of it. In any case, I know everyone's smart and savvy out there. You'll figure a way out to get this so that you can work from the actual watercolor painting, and then you'll also see the photograph too in just a few minutes. So have fun with this. We're going to talk all about having a really good sense of light in this painting with the shadows, working with the big forms and shapes first, and then working to the details toward the end of the painting. That's another helpful thing. When you see a scene that's got this much information in it, it's often something where a lot of us artists, including myself, we don't want to paint it or draw it because there's just too much information, too many details. But I'll show you on this video how you can actually work slowly from larger shapes first and then to your smaller detailed shapes, and we'll have a fun time. Okay, see you in just a second. Okay, we've just seen the finished painting. Feel free to work from that. I think it's easier if you work from the finished painting than trying to work from this, but it's up to you. If you want to work from a photograph of the actual scene, that's fine too. Most times I'd rather work from actually watercolor paintings. I do that a lot, but in any case, I have this same photograph on my laptop across from me to the right. So I'm going to draw and paint from my laptop across from me on my art table here, my studio table. And this is the photograph I'm going to work from, and it's Curtains and Lace. Antique shop in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, beautiful Pennsylvania. Farmlands everywhere, just great people out there. Wonderful time to relax. I go there every year with my parents right before Christmas in the fall, October, September, October, sometimes even November, depends. But always a great time. We have a great time relaxing out there in the countryside. We visit all the antique shops, the antique stores, the farmers markets. Great place to shop for all kinds of interesting foods and fresh vegetables and things. At the end of our trip, we'll load up on some really good produce and things like that from the beautiful farmlands of New Pennsylvania. And okay, so let's get started. We'll do the drawing now, and I'll explain how to just minimize stuff, because I know looking at this photograph, I know myself, I usually wouldn't want to do this because there's so much detail in it, but I'll just explain how I go about minimizing all the details so that you can actually do a painting, drawing and painting like this, and have fun at it and not worry about all those details that you see here, because that can be overwhelming when you look at something like this and try to think about drawing and painting it. All right, so we'll get started in just a second with the drawing. Okay, we are back, and I'm just going to get started now on the drawing. So on a painting like this, again, we were talking about the details of it. So when you see a scene like this, if you're out and you're taking some pictures, or if you're even going to sit down and maybe do some painting in plein air outdoors in an area like this where there's a lot of antique shops or interesting things that you might like, the thing is with minimizing, it's really, you would, we'll actually go through it here, but we'll just start with the large shapes first. So we'll keep working on the large shapes and the overall larger design of the painting and drawing. And then as we do that, we'll add in some of the details. Once we get the larger form of the drawing done, then we'll put in some smaller details, and then we'll start the painting and we'll work into the painting, and then we can add in some really fine details with just our brush and paint versus trying to pencil draw everything. So in essence, one of the keys to minimizing and simplifying a scene is drawing less than you see, and then you start working on the painting, and then you can do some of the finer details just with your brush and your paint versus trying to pencil draw everything. So in essence, you're going to just draw the larger whole of the scene with your pencil drawing, and then you can do some details, maybe larger details with your pencil drawing, and then the final details you would do with your just your brush and your paint as you're painting. So let's start here. You can use a ruler. I'm going to use a ruler here. I'm going to do some hash marks also as well before I start. So the sunlight, it's middle of the day, maybe high noon. So the light is from the top, and the sun is straight up overhead. A little bit behind us maybe, but probably more just straight overhead, up top, straight up in the sky over our heads. Much like if you're standing in underneath a light fixture in your house and the light is directly above your head, that's the light bulbs. This is what this would be then. So we're just going to have the insignia of our light, and then we're going to go and we're going to look at the picture, and we're going to pretty much do it the way we see the photograph. We might minimize some things. I might not put as much. I might change a few things around. But for the most part, if we broke it into quarters, so 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. 3 quarters would be the roof, or maybe just a little bit above that. Roof of the curtains and lace antique shop, and the bottom of the building is probably about halfway between the first quarter there. So building, I'll put building there, and we'll say that the roof over here. So what we'll do is we don't want to do too much on our hash marks, just the basics. The bottom of the building, the very tippy top of the roof, that's good enough there. Then we're going to say, let's look at the bottom of the painting and say, okay, halfway point, we'll do quarters too. So we'll do quarters, 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. So maybe about halfway, so 1/8 of the way over starts the building. We can even move it a little bit over this way. Building there. Then we're going to go over here and say the building is about not quite 3 quarters. Building. So the building's about this wide here, from here to here, building. Then the roof is over here. Roof. Lower roof, LWR. So I'll use some abbreviations. Lower roof here. And that should be good. Now I go through this pretty fast. I've been doing my design like this and laying out things for many, many years. So if it takes you a little bit more time, don't worry about it. Try to get these hash marks around on the tape before you start, because that'll really give you a good basis for your design as you're drawing our antique shop here. Okay, so let's get started with our drawing. We're going to go up, and again, we're going to just transfer our marks up. So the building's here. So we said our building's here, and the roof is here. So about there starts the roof, and it angles out a little bit. And this is going to be a very light sketch. I just want to kind of start it out, get things going here. All right, and then we're going to have the wall, the end of the building here, the wall. So the roof eaves hang out beyond the edge of the wall. So we have that little overhang there. Comes down. Then this roof, this is like a shed roof. We would call that a shed roof, and that runs across the whole lower area of the antique shop. So we're going to put that there. And then we're going to have, we say the bottom of the building is here, and it works out good. Yep, that's about the bottom of the building. And then this wall is right straight underneath the same, so this is the same line here. So this line comes straight down right like this. Does that make sense? We're just really, this is the actual edge of the building, and it's the same all the way up. And then the roofs kind of jut out beyond the wall like that. And if I'm really super accurate, I'm going to actually, this is not quite as far. This just doesn't go out quite as much like that. So that's, take your time when you do this layout part here, when you're laying out your architectural features of the antique shop. You know, look at the details. You know, this one is further out. This roof eave is more overhangs here. This one a little less. But, you know, if it's about, you know, close, that's good enough. And then we'll go across here. This is kind of simple. This is one straight line, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. If you want to use a ruler, you can do that. I like a little bit of sway in the roof. It's actually, in reality, the roofs usually do have a little bit of, it's, you know, been here maybe 75 to 100 years, so it's not going to be perfectly straight. And we said the lower roof is here, the building is here. So again, we transfer our mark up here. We have the building here, edge of the building, so we could even just do a super light line up like that. And so our roof's going to go beyond the building line. The roof goes quite a bit out. Then we're going to bring this across again, make it wavy. Don't worry about straightness, unless you like straight. If you like a lot of straight lines, you go for it. Use the rulers, and use, you know, if you can use the rulers to get perfectly straight lines if you like that look. And then here, the building line's here. And then we're going to transfer this roof here, this line. This goes out pretty far beyond, like that. So there's quite a bit of an overhang on this lower shed roof here. So that you can see is really, here's the building line. This lower roof goes out quite a bit this way. And you can shorten it up or make it longer as you're working, and you see that you might need to do that. I'm making it a little bit smaller, a little bit not as far out. There we go. And this is the porch on the front. So this is the porch area here. And then there's some foundation, and there's all kinds of interesting things here, antiques everywhere. We're just going to make sure we get our center mark, approximate center line here. That's going to be the center of the door. The door goes all the way up to the roof, almost there, and it comes down like this. And then there's some stairs here. And the stairs are pretty wide, so we just do a light sketch there. I'm just kind of getting things planned out, and then what I'll do is I'll go back over this with a darker pencil line so that it's easier to see. But I would leave this just as it is if I was in the field, doing this on location, or if I was just going to paint this on my own for my own purposes, or my own, just creating a painting for a show or something. I wouldn't really go over this a second time, but I will go over it a second time just so. And sometimes I will go over a second time just because I want to get some more details in, or I need to change some things around. All right, so there we have it. That's the basic structure of everything. It's basically a rectangle here, and then another rectangle up here, and another thinner rectangle here, and that makes up the basics of the antique shop. Pretty simple, actually, right? Not really too much to it. Then we have some other details to work on. Let's do the posts. Posts are pretty simple too. There's one here. There's one here. And I'm just looking at it and saying, where are they posted in relation to like the door? So the door here, post is here. This next post, I'm going to change. I'm going to make it closer to here. So that's where you can change some things around. Don't feel like you always have to do everything exact. And one more post out here. So these are the posts that hold up the roof. And that's pretty good. You know what? Let's take a break now. We did a lot of pencil drawing here. My concentration, I feel like I'm starting to lose a little bit of focus. So when that happens, I stop. I take a break. I'm just going to take maybe a 5-10 minute break. We'll come right back. We'll continue doing our drawing. But we have most of the basic core structure of what we need to do on this painting, and then we'll just do in some of the windows and some of the trees on the sides of this antique shop. But this is a great scene, and it's coming out really good so far. And I hope you're just relaxing, enjoying the process. And if you have to draw this a few times on regular printer paper, like office paper first, if you want to draw this a few times on printer paper, you get more familiar with it. Then when you get your watercolor paper and you're going to do your painting and you're going to start drawing on your watercolor paper, you've already done it a couple times on printer paper, maybe with a magic marker, a pencil, whatever, pen, even a pen. But that really sometimes helps a lot. If you're still working on your drawing skills, it really helps a lot if you can kind of hash out and do some of this beforehand on a scrap paper or some printer paper. And then this way, when you're coming in to do your drawing on your watercolor paper, which is your good paper, expensive, more than some printer paper, watercolor paper obviously is expensive. And you can do it that way. And this way you'll be more comfortable with the design, the drawing, and you can go in and kind of just do it more confidently and not have too many problems where you're erasing and doing things like that. Okay, let's come back in just a few minutes. Okay, so we're back from a break. We took a break, 5-10 minutes. I'm going to sharpen my pencil here. Okay, so now we're going to continue with our drawing. We remembered that we're going to try to simplify everything on this scene. Again, we see all these details sometimes when we're out. We're looking at some of our photographs we might have taken on vacation, or we're outdoors and we want to sit down with our sketchbook or a little pad of watercolor paper and some paints and a little paint bucket and just do a quick little sketch. We see all these tons of details and we say, how can I do this? Again, this thing is simplify, simplify, simplify. Don't worry. When you see tons of details, just relax, kick back, say, I know how to do this. I know how to simplify this scene. You can do it. So we're going to do exactly that. We simplified the scene. The first thing we did was we made our hash marks, really important, so that you have a guide as you're drawing to get everything in the proper places. We wouldn't want to start up here with our roof and then keep drawing, and next thing you know, we don't have enough room to put the bottom of the porch here where the antiques and all the antiques are, and the interesting fence here in the front. Although, we could delete the fence if we wanted to, but I think we'll put in the fence here. But in any case, what I'm saying is these hash marks will really help you from going off the beaten track with your drawing. So we got our main structure done, our antique shop, two-story building, home. It's actually a house. And now we have the door here. There's a transom window over top of the door. Then the door has, so we want to capture some of the details, but not every single detail. So there we have a door. There's a storm door on top of that door. Then there's a window essentially here in the center between the two columns, basically, with some shutters. So I'm going to put the shutters there, window, and I'm not going to worry about getting everything perfect. That's good. The windows are actually a little bit taller, so these might be somewhat tall windows, 6 feet, maybe 5 or 6 feet tall, the windows. Sometimes windows are maybe 4 feet high. These are a little more, maybe about 6 feet, with shutters. And then over here, and then there's some detail over the top of the window. That's a small header over the top of that. Then here there's a window. And then over here there's a double window. I'll start with the shutter since it's easy to see where the shutter is compared to the column or the end of the wall. So when you're drawing, you can make things easy for yourself and sort of, if you see that the column is here and the shutter is about one width of the shutter over from the column, then that's easier to start there with your window versus starting over here somewhere. But if you see that, so you kind of use this is what I say, and this is how contour drawing is done. We're not really doing contour drawing so much here. We're sort of, it's a form of contour drawing, but it's really, I'm taking my time and making sure I'm getting everything correctly. I'm drawing everything correctly to scale for the most part. These windows are even taller yet. And as I look at that, this window is a double window, so. And then a shutter over here. And there's some moldings on the bottom of this window here. And you don't have to get so much detail. I'm kind of just trying to get it somewhat the way we see it in the picture. And there's no shutters actually on this window. Okay, so we have the windows completed, the door, so we're good on that. Let's move up here. Directly over the top of the door is the window up above here. That window goes right down to the roof area, all the way up, and it almost reaches the underside of the roof. Like that. Good. And shutters. Same thing with this window above here is in line with this. So if you want to line things up, you can do that. You can, again, you can use a ruler or even a pencil. And we'll just keep drawing here. We'll get our lines up here, one here. That's actually a double, so this is only a single wide window. And it's pretty much centered on this. So I'm just going to And if you have a line that kind of, you could just do a little bit of erasing here and there. Okay, so now we have all our windows done on the second floor. All of our windows and doors done on the first floor. So you can see now we're getting the main features here, and then we're going to maybe do a few details as well. But before we do any more details, we're going to try to capture a few more things on the side here. So of the right side here of the drawing, let's do the, there's a bush over here. Let's get that. So I just very loosely put in the bush there, and it goes down like this. And then the fence top of the fence starts at the bottom of the stairs. So the fence starts here, and it goes there. I'm gonna make the fence stop here, so that we feel like we can walk through over here. And then the fence also stops here and stops there and goes this way. And I'm going to make a point here where I stop the fence here, so that again we can feel like we can kind of go into the scene more around the fence here. So I'm going to pretend that the fence stops there, and the porch is here. And then there's all kinds of interesting things. So again, I'll just make a note here like that with some lines just to kind of, so I know that this is where my fence is. Looks good. Then there's a gazebo over here. What's good about this gazebo is it gives us a little of, it's going to make a feel of, there's something in the distance that's sort of kind of helping our eye to see the three-dimensional feel of the buildings and the scene. So this is a gazebo here. And I'm not sure, I'll make some lines over here. Then behind this gazebo is a tree. And what I'll try to do is, I'm going to try to carefully get the basic feel of this tree. If you find you can always erase a few lines on this tree if you think it's not going perfect. And then I'm going to try to just keep my eye on the. So I'm really looking at I'm looking at the photograph. I'm not going to be exact with everything, but I'm going to try to get pretty close. And up here it trails off a little bit that way, like that. Another there, another branch there. It's a little bit wider here. And there's another thicker branch here. That looks pretty good. So I wanted to get that tree in. Then there's another building over here. And I will try to capture that too as well. Okay, and then we have the and I think what really this helps to give the painting a three-dimensional feel, because now we're kind of having that feel like there's something there's this building down over here. That looks really good. There's a shadow there. And this is all in shadow. Okay, so the right side of the scene looks good. There's some hills in the background here. This is the farmlands in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is a farm in the distance here with some distant hills. So I'm going to put those in. I won't get more detailed than just some rolling hills and some trees in the distance. And this is a grass field here. This is actually some crops here. It looks like a cornfield maybe here. So we're gonna have that in the scene. Let's take another break. We've done a lot of drawing again. We've done all the windows and doors, the tree, this gazebo, and this other distant building over here. If you need to take more breaks, or if you want to kind of, again here, simplifying a scene, if you want to simplify, there's not a problem if you leave out the gazebo and this other structure here, and maybe just put in this tree, and that would be fine, and a couple bushes, maybe smaller bushes down here by this tree, so you can still get the feel of distance here and three-dimensional steps going through the painting toward the back of the painting, the distant part of the painting. So you can still get all of that feel without doing the gazebo and this building. I felt like doing this, but if it's more simple for you, you want to keep it more simple, that's fine. You can delete out the gazebo in this house. Here, there's another structure, this is another antique shop actually next door to this. So we can, I want to keep this accurate to the scene. So I'm going to do, for accuracy, I'm going to do this. And then approximately here, the building ends here. Like that. And there's like, looks like there's maybe like a sidewalk over here and some grass. And we might we'll do another tree over here. And that looks fine. That looks pretty good. We have a good likeness of the actual scene. And again, maybe you can also delete the building on this side, the left side, if you're doing this painting and you want to keep it more simple. Again, I'm trying to go with my photograph and try to keep it pretty much exact, but that's not necessary. Let's take a break. We've done a lot of drawing so far here, and we'll come back and start the painting. Okay, we're back. Perfect timing. I just wanted to say, everyone, if you're enjoying my videos, please give a thumbs up. Also, too, subscribe if you haven't. Consider that. This way you can be alerted when our new videos come out. Once a week we create new videos just like this. Drawing, painting, and watercolors, everything watercolors. You can also hit the notification bell, and that'll let you know exactly when the video comes out. You'll get an alert. And let's keep going here. We're almost ready to start painting, and everyone's excited. I always, something new I've done in my videos is in the beginning, actually when you open up this video and you start the video, there is a description below the video. I'll put in the video what time I start my painting, and what time I start my at what time I start my drawing, my pencil drawing. This way, if you're going to come back in a second time, or if you're actually working on your painting and you stop for a couple of days and then you come back and you want to know where things started. So I realize that might be a help to everyone. So that's what I'm going to start doing from now on. I'm just picking up a few new things to do that are going to help everybody out in regards to working along the video. You know, when you're working with the video and maybe you're starting and stopping, or you start a video and then maybe you come back a week later if you get caught up and you're doing some things, and you're going to come back in and start working again. So I'm going to keep doing that. Make sure that I put those timestamps in the description of the video, in the beginning of the video. And okay, so what I'm going to do here is just, I'm going to put those windows in this building over here. This is important to get these in. And there's another window here. And then there's another. There's a double window up here. Okay, I just wanted to get those windows in, and you can kind of see how these windows are on an angle this way, the bottom of the windows. So that's just a bit of perspective there. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just look at the photograph and maybe put my pencil up. I'll put my pencil on my laptop and put it up against the screen of my laptop to get the angle. So I kind of look at it and go, okay, that's the angle. So I'll put the pencil on my laptop and then just bring the pencil over and do this so that it's the same angle. And then I get my angle on the windows there, like that. Because that's difficult. That's a difficult angle. I would think it would go this way, but it's actually this way here, like this. Okay, let's get started with our painting. This is the fun part. We have a real fun time doing this. This is, I'm just going to start out with a number 6 Raphael brush, round brush. And let's start out with the roofs. The roofs are pretty large, and we want to make sure we make them, they're a grayish color. So brown, cerulean blue, burnt umber, maybe a little bit of cobalt blue, a little bit of purple. So if we'll start out and say, okay, this is kind of the color we want to, a little bit of alizarin crimson. These are the colors we want to use for the roof, kind of a mixture of different colors, and we want to sort of mix these all up as we go. So I'm just going to start on this side over here, left. I'm a right-handed person, so when I'm watercolor painting, it's easier to start from the left and work to the right. So I'm not leaning into my paint. And I want to make sure there's tons of variation on this roof. So now I just And once this paint dries, you're going to notice that you'll see some of these colors that we have mixed in, which is good. And I always remember there's a lot of cerulean blue though. Cerulean blue is the main color I think I'm going to use. And this will dry a lot lighter. And I'll splash a little bit. And again, I try to move my brush around different ways. And I know some of you are going to say, I don't see all those colors in the photograph. Don't worry about that. Don't worry. Add lots of color to your washes. That'll make them look so much better. I know some of you are going to definitely be tempted to just say, well, Chris, that's only 2 colors. I see blue and maybe some brown. But if you add in these extra colors, this alizarin crimson, and the cobalt blue a little bit, and the brown, I think you'll see that it really is going to look much better, more interesting. And let's do the lower roof. And what we'll do is we'll probably my laptop screen just went dark. I'm going to see if I can re-zoom in that. There we go. Okay, so now the lower roof is a metal roof and the upper roof is a shingle roof. I'm not going to I'm going to keep them both the same. That would be really a problem. I would consider that an issue where if you thought to yourself, oh, well, the bottom roof has lines in it and it's shiny, it's a steel, it's a metal roof. And then the upper roof's a shingle roof. I'm going to keep the lower roof just like this one, same colors. That will look much better. That's where you take your liberty as an artist, and everything is subordinate to the artwork and the overall look of the painting versus trying to keep things accurate. And we're having lots of fun here, aren't we? Look at this. This is just mixing colors. It looks a little bit, again, I'll always say this. You'll hear me say this all the time. You'll hear great artists say this all the time. You can't judge a watercolor when you're in the middle of painting it. It always will look less finished, and it will look at times haphazard. But once everything's all painted and then 90% complete, then you see the beauty of the way the watercolor will look. So never get discouraged in the middle of a watercolor painting. No matter what goes wrong, you just keep going forward and finish it all the way to unless it goes so horrible, then you just take it, put it to the side, and start another one. But most times you will definitely notice that you have to really finish the whole painting before you can really look at it and say it didn't come out good. So always remember, finish it out. Just go for it. Keep going. If something goes wrong, don't worry about it. Just keep going forward. Keep to your plan. We're going to do the large areas here. The roofs are done now, complete, 100%. We'll take a break. Perfect time to take a break. We did the washes on the roofs, the upper roof, the lower shed roof here. Perfect. Let's leave it at that. We'll take a break. I might even wait till tomorrow to come back and finish this painting, or I might work on it a little more. But you can do that too as well. Watercolor is great that way. You can let it sit, come back the next day and start working again, and everything is fine. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, we're back again, and we're going to start back up. I took about a 10-minute break here, and we're going to continue. So I just wanted to mention this quickly. As we're painting, you can change around the colors of this scene if you want. Now, since I go out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania a lot, I want to kind of keep it, true to the scene. But it may be that you'd want to change the color of the building. You might like to make it like a yellow or a tan color, or maybe a blue. So, it's kind of like a barn red, like that kind of that medium red color, barn red, with the brownish red color. So I'm going to stick to that, but you can change the color too. The only thing when you change color, you just have to remember that, your shadows might, the tonal values of your shadow might change a little bit. So some shadows might become lighter or darker. So with a darker color building, your shadows, let's say underneath the eaves of this roof, they're going to be darker because the shadow is cast upon the darker color of the building. So that'll make it a darker looking shadow. If you have a lighter color building, like the lighter color siding, the shadow might be lighter underneath the eaves of the roof because it's a lighter siding. So you might, if you have trouble with your shadow, getting your shadows correct, you might look at some watercolor pictures online, or even some just pictures online. You type in maybe something like a yellow house, and then the photographs might come up of a yellow house, and you'll see sunlight, and you'll see a house that's in sunlight with shadows on a yellow color paint on the building, and that's how you can figure out shadows. Sometimes I do that. If I change something around in a painting, I'll go and research if I think I'm going to have a problem with something like that, like the shadows being too light or too dark. So I want to try to keep it pretty accurate, or so it doesn't look too awkward. So we're going to start back up here. Now the siding is a brownish red, so let's mix up some reds. Brown, cadmium red. So I'll mix up all my reds here. Cadmium red, alizarin crimson, brown, and burnt sienna. That gives us plenty of interesting. And then a little bit of purple and blue, cobalt blue and purple, just to have a little variation. Some warm and cool everywhere. I'll put my shadows in later, actually. but I will add some warm and cool to the paint. Okay. And if you go over a spot, don't worry about it. Watercolor's a fun medium. No reason to fret over minor things, because when we look at a painting, we look at the whole painting as a whole. We don't focus in on one area of the painting and see something that looks funny, awkward, whatever. I left out some details on this. There, I went over the shutter a little bit. I've been working a long time on this. Now you're going to see me make some problems, some mistakes here, because I'm working and working. This is when I should have just stopped for the night and picked up tomorrow, but nope. I'm going to keep going, and this is what happens. You'll see me having problems with some things, but it is what it is. And we carry on and keep moving ahead here, and I'll come back later with some white paint and just touch that up a little bit. And we'll keep going. Now here's where we have to be on our toes. We have to paint this column in, so we paint around the column. Negative shape painting, as they call it. Let's do that. So we leave that column white there. Let's mix up some more variation. Cadmium red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, a little bit of purple, and a little bit of cobalt blue. And this is Fabriano paper. Now, what I didn't mention here is, if you start to see some things you want to paint around, this is your time we'll do it. So this is pretty good here. I'll paint around this column and window. And I'll just leave some spaces around the here and there. I'm going to leave some white paper. And what that'll do is that'll leave us some places to put interesting, like, antiques and things. There's quite a bit of antiques in the in this scene. Okay, now I'm going to try to get that sign. That is, it's the open sign. Here again, we're painting a negative shape painting, so I see some shapes in here that are some chairs and tables. So I'll capture that by doing some fine lines. Then over here there's a chair. I'll try to paint around that chair. Okay, so we got the majority of all of our paint on the building, the red barn paint. Looks pretty good. And remember, some of the antiques that you see on the porch and in the front yard and on the lawn here, you can just, paint around them. Sort of some mystery shapes here and there. I'll take some sap green, raw umber, and I'll just do a little bit of some of this shrub here. We'll splash a little bit. A little bit of shadowing. And I'll do some shadowing raw umber and some cobalt blue just to give it a little darker. Okay, so we did quite a bit of painting. I think it's probably good to take another break at this point. So we did the roofs first. We took a break. Then we did this red wood facade. It's a clapboard siding, barn red clapboard siding. We're going to leave this just as it is now. We'll let this dry a little bit, and it's actually pretty dry in most places, but we'll actually let this dry a little more and we'll come back. So we'll take a break because this is a kind of painting, let's take lots of breaks because a lot of details. If we're just really throwing the paint on and it's more of a simple like seascape, or we're just doing tons of water, if we're doing a landscape and we're just doing tons of like trees and fields, you can work on those, and you might not have to take as many breaks. But on a painting like this, since there's so much detail going on, let's take plenty of breaks. So we'll stick to our game plan, plenty of breaks. Roofs, take a break. Paint the building facade red, barn red. Lots of mixes of color. We'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll continue working on, maybe we'll work on this over here, this building over here on the side. The building that's right alongside this beautiful antique shop. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we're picking up from yesterday. Sometimes you'll find that if you're working on a painting and there's a lot of details and it's taken you maybe more time than you expected, that's not a problem. I sometimes will, leave off a painting many times, start a painting and then, pick back up the next day or a couple days later. Sometimes I'll have a painting, a watercolor painting, especially a larger painting, maybe like a 20 by 30 watercolor painting. It might take me like a week to do, where I just take my time and I do a little work on it each day or each night. Totally up to you how you bracket your time on your watercolor painting. This is like an 8 by 10 painting, so this is more or less, we worked on it quite a bit already, and we're just going to continue on here. And we've got we've got a lot done so far, actually. But the drawing takes, a lot of time, which we did do. The drawing, we took our time, we laid everything out, we had hash marks all around, and as you can see now we're picking back up. I put fresh tape on. It looks a little better on camera here when we're doing a video to remove the hash marks, but you only need the hash marks really when you start. So even if it bothers you when you're painting, having the hash marks on your tape, you can just retape your painting once you have your drawing completed. And we'll continue on here. So I have a number 8 Raphael brush, round, actually number 6, and we'll continue on with this building over here. And this is next door to the Curtains and Lace Country Antique Store. We're having a wonderful time here. I'm thinking back to when I was out here visiting and doing sightseeing and shopping and just taking in the great relaxation of being out in the farmlands of Pennsylvania. So maybe I will add a little blue and some Viridian just to maybe tone down this over here a little bit, the red. So the main antique store here, that's the focal point, and then we're going to tone down the intensity of the red a little bit over here. So I'll just add in some green and I'm actually painting around the post here. There's one more post here on the antique store. And I think I will leave out some shapes here. So that I'm much doing the same as here, leaving out some white paper so that I can put maybe a couple, maybe some antique items along here. And over here too as well. And what's nice, we left this space in between the two buildings. We can put some, we're going to take this field and distant mountain, rolling mountain range, and we're going to transfer it all the way over to here, and we'll put it into this small window of space between these two buildings, and that's going to give a good feeling of like it's going to breathe. The painting's going to feel like you can kind of see through the scene a little bit. If we were just to paint a big block of building here and have nothing that we can see behind it, it's going to limit the excitement of the painting, actually. So let's try to think about that. Does that make sense? If we can get a little bit of distance in this scene, that's going to give us that feeling of depth. So I'm always looking for that type of opportunity in a painting to try to do this. Sometimes it's not possible, but I did create it here a little bit on this side. The photograph really didn't have this opening between the two buildings, but it did have it over here. So I'm going to try to invent my own things, my own design ideas as I go. And that really is helpful to do. Some sap green. That tends to gray it down a little bit. And I'll take some of that red wash and sort of, that tree is lighter, but if I bring in a little bit of that, if I tie that in just a little bit and bring some of the wash, not all of it, some of it over into this tree here, that looks good. And we're going to go in and we'll do some of that roof, blue, burnt umber. And I think the since this over here is, it's not really the main subject matter in the painting, it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so we took some time. We put this building over here. I'm moving around the painting. We'll have to go back in and do some of the window details, but we'll let that go for now. I think what happens is if we can get the main idea of the painting again with the painting like this where there's tons of detail, let's block in the main subject matter again. I'm just repeating myself, but it bears repeating. We're going to block in the main subject matter, and then we'll go back and we'll start working on the details, and then we'll see how the details look as we start putting those in once we've done the main portions of the painting. So let's go over here. We'll do this building over here, brown. This one's a little darker, so we're going to add some blue to that. So that was some French ultramarine blue. It's in shadow. I'll get some red in there too, just to make sure we get that. Purple. Brown, blue. So we're making some darker mixes here. Shadowing. Not the main focus of the painting, so as long as we capture the overall feel of this, we should be good. And I'll use a needlepoint brush, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and some of that red. And I'm just going to do the posts here and some of the details along here on this and we have this over here. And then already I'm starting to see some of that burnt umber, raw umber, raw sienna, a little bit of that brown, and some green. And that's going to give us that feel of seeing some of the distant colors. We'll put the roof color on. For the gazebo. And now we're tying everything together. Raw umber and some cerulean blue for this tree here, so that makes a good effect, tying things together. We'll put in some shadowing. And now's about a time for a break. We're going to come in and do some shadowing too. This is a lot of fun because when you use this type of technique of really just working on the painting in glazings, it really it gives you a chance to really get the feel for like the shadowing, the light. So we have some good light in this picture. The light is shining on the front. You know, it's the light's coming from the top down, but it is shining on the front of this scene here in the, you know, on the face of this building here, this antique shop. And then you'll see once we start getting most everything completed, then we'll go in and do our shadows and some of our details. But you'll see when we do the shadows, the light will be much more interesting in the picture. So if we're working in glazings like this and doing steps at a time, you'll learn the whole process of really like light and shadow, and as well as, you know, tying together these lost and found edges are right here. So this is a great way to learn lost and found edges. This roof here is similar in value, tonal value, to this roof over here. So we crossed over and we didn't worry about making any lines or borders on these two roofs because they're pretty much the same tonal value. Maybe in the painting it's a little different, but I wanted to make this tie-in over here. So these two roofs are tied together and just sort of blend together. That gives a nice feeling of three-dimensional quality. And the same here with the tree, blending some of the colors of the front of the, or the side of this building into the tree gives us that feeling of, tying things together, three-dimensional qualities. And the same thing over here with some of these washes washing in and mingling with the others. And then again, we'll see as we do this shadowing on the building and underneath the eaves of the roof. And here we did a nice shadow, so already we're getting that nice feeling of dark shadowing along the side of this building. And we notice that along here the shadow is a little lighter, so I just wet that a little, dab it. We could add some purple wash to this. Okay, so we'll come back, we'll take a break now. We'll let this dry, some of these washes over here dry, and we'll come back and we'll keep working. And we should really be close to finishing up in the next, 10, 20 minutes. We should have everything good. Okay, we took our break. We're doing fine. I'm going to continue here. I started a little bit over here while we were away. This is good. I could not wait to get back started again. So I started going in here and forgot to turn the camera on. So I'm putting in some of those distant fields, and already we're feeling that really nice feeling of depth in the painting. We've got some of these distant fields here. Some of that raw umber. I mixed everything, some of the sap green, cadmium lemon yellow, and sap green. Especially some of that cadmium lemon yellow here. Kind of gives it that bright lit feeling. So now we're seeing out into the distance. We'll put some bluish purple mountains in this distant area here. Once this all dries, I don't want to mix that in right now and put that in the purple and blue mountains. I see that our paints are, we've been mixing a lot. Let's practice good habits here. Let's make sure we clean our palettes here and get that paint off. And we know what colors we're using already. If you, for some reason, if you're newer to watercolors, it would help if sometimes you might write down the colors you're using for the painting. Once you get used to your colors and you use the same colors over and over and over again, you can just look at your palette and you'll see all the colors in the palette, and you'll know which ones you're using at all times, so you really won't have to worry about that. But if you're sort of newer and you haven't memorized your colors yet completely, you can always just write it down on a piece of paper and say we're using, you know, cad red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna for the building, and for the roof we were using cerulean blue, burnt umber. We're using some alizarin crimson in the roof as well, and a little bit of raw sienna and raw umber in the roofs as well, in these washes. So you can kind of see as you're working in your painting, you can also identify the colors on the paper. So you can look at your paper and go, oh, that's right, I used alizarin crimson there, and I used cerulean blue here. I see that cerulean blue, some cobalt blue, purple. We use some purple, ultramarine violet here, some burnt umber and some raw umber here. So you'll kind of start to see all the colors, and you can get back and put the stuff out onto the palette that you need to. You'll know what you're using. Okay, so we're already completed with the roof, so we don't have to worry about that, but I was just using that as an example. We're going to keep working here. Let's see what we have. It's always good. Raw umber, maybe a little cerulean blue. Raw umber, cerulean blue. I might just do a little. Splashing can add a little bit of interest. And a little bit of color too. So if I take a little bit of the cadmium lemon yellow, maybe a touch of orange, that can give a feeling of warmth over here. And I'm going to empty my water and get fresh water. So I'm just filling up my water pail. I'm using a large water pail here. So I just got fresh water for that. And let's continue here. So let's see. The best thing to do is to work this area in here in between the fence and the building and try to just get some details in there if we can. We'll also work on some burnt umber, cerulean blue. I'll put some we'll do the steps here on the front, so that's real simple. I leave some white space on the between the steps, and then we can use some burnt umber, cerulean blue. We'll use more of that similar color. Maybe a little green here. Now here's where I'm taking artist liberty. Okay, that is the porch. And a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Burnt sienna. And let's see. If I can just make some, I'm making some small shapes here and there. I left out the railings. There's railings across the front porch. The only problem I have is it's really hard for me in the studio here to see my laptop screen sometimes with the finer details because of the lights, the recording lights, but I'll see what I can do. All right, so that's and I'll tie in some of the colors, the shadow colors, down into the fence. And again, I'll mix some burnt umber and sap green. I think there's going to be, I'm taking again artist liberty. I'm making some bushes here. And I'll tie those down in like that with the fence. I'll come back later with a square brush to maybe do the rest of the fence so we can do it a little faster. And we'll do some more over here. Splashes. I'm leaving white paper here and there. Some variation. I try to do that all the time. I'm just always thinking, how can I make something a little different than just doing the same thing over and over? So if I make some wide lines, some thin lines, that'll look better than just doing the same size line for the fence. So the fence has a little bit of the lights shining in the front of this scene, more or less. So the light will be shining on this white picket fence, and let's make that fence interesting. Let's not just get into the habit of saying, okay, it all looks the same. Let me just go 1, 2, 3 and just go, you know, down 50, 60, 70, 80, all the way, you know, across. Let's vary everything. Some of them, maybe it's going to be white, white fence without any lines in it at all. In certain locations, maybe a little bit here and there. So let's see how it goes. Again, just think variation to yourself when you're doing watercolors. It really helps. Does that make sense? I'll take some red, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, a little bit of purple, cobalt blue. And I'll try to just get some of that, some of the reddish hues in the fence too, to in essence harmonize it with the building. So I will put a little bit of red colors that we used on the building in some of these greens and grays that we're doing in the front. This is a marathon of a painting, but I definitely wanted to do this. This is exciting. This is an antique shop in the countryside. It's, you know, just the feeling of being out shopping and having fun out in the countryside, relaxing on vacation. That whole feeling is great. So we're going for it here, going for the gusto, and let's take another break. We'll continue by adding this field over here in between these two buildings. That's really going to look great, you'll see. As well, we might even take some of this and put it in a window. That really will, and some blue sky in maybe a window or two here. If you do that, you're really it's gonna take the painting to a whole new level. Let's see if we can do that successfully. If it's gonna work, we'll try it anyway. We're experimenting here as we go. All right, everybody, we'll be right back. Just taking another break. Okay, we are back. I took a break. Take breaks, everybody. Take lots of breaks, especially on a painting like this. If you're going to tackle this painting, this might be one you leave on the side, taped down to your board or your foam board or your masonite board, and you know, you work on it maybe all week. You do like an hour here and there, half an hour here and there, 20 minutes here and there, and you know, as long as you have my finished painting to work from, you'll kind of have the feel of how it's going to look and what you'll be needing to do as you paint. So again, I say this a lot. You know, if you're regulars to my channel, you'll know that I always mention that it's good to paint from actually watercolor paintings versus trying to take a photograph and paint from a photograph. That's great, but if you're sort of like anywhere between like 1 and 5 years of painting, you know, you're probably best trying to work from finished watercolor paintings, because you'll be seeing what you actually have to try to replicate in your painting. If you're looking at a photograph, then you're sort of like you're looking at the photograph and you're saying, how am I going to translate that into the painting? So that's just a great thing to remember, if you can remember that. If not, don't worry about it. I say paint everything. And let's keep going here. So we kind of saw how we got the main 3 buildings done. This main beautiful curtains and lace antique shop in the beautiful Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then we have another shop next door. People come here, they shop, they walk out, they go down the block, down the street on the sidewalk, they go in here. There's across from this, there's a huge food market. That's the Burdenham Food Market. And then over here, there's another building. This is another antique shop over here. And that gives us a nice, interesting thing to sort of observe on the side of the painting. And once we get some details in on this will be another interesting thing our eye can go over and look at. And this is the main focal point here. And we'll continue painting. Let's get this over here. So let's transfer this distant field, that distant field line. Let's transfer it over to the other side. This is something we definitely want to make sure we get level across the picture. Other things you can sometimes, it's not so important, but this is really important to get this line level across the picture, because it'll look much better. The painting will look so much better if we can do that. I might even just drop it down a little bit. No one will notice that. So we can get the mountain in here and a little bit of sky color. Okay, so then now we're going to continue with our same washes we were using. Maybe I'll just clean up the palette a little bit this here. And we'll go in and we'll get our cadmium lemon yellow, sap green, yellow ochre, and there we have our colors. So I'll dab on some paint and then just use that paint and sort of work it upwards. And it's more yellow ochre toward the top. And I'll rinse my brush off and dry it on my apron. You can use a tissue, so I'll rinse my brush off, tap some water off on the tissue, and then just go in and sort of we can go over here. Add a little more yellow ochre here. Did the same thing again. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little. Cadmium lemon yellow there, a little bit of green. Then we still have okay, so we did a lot here. We got our distant fields. We got our porch, the bottom of our porch, that line, that shadow under the porch, which makes the top of the porch boards appear as we do that shadow line. And then we just filled in some fun shapes here and there just to give this some interesting shapes in between the fence and the porch in the front of the antique shop. And we can add some more, we'll add some more details into here, but for right now that looks pretty good. I think we can do the mountains. Let's do the distant mountains. That's going to be purple and maybe some cerulean blue. Maybe some raw umber. Okay, so that's, I dry off my brush a little bit, pick up some of that purple, and I'm going to paint above that, just in case the paper is wet there. I'm going to paint above it. And actually when I paint above it, it creates another mountain range. So that looks good. So I'll leave that as it is. And the same here. Maybe a little bit of I just put in a little bit of raw umber. It might look interesting too to put a dark line, like some pine trees or something along this once this dries. We might try that. I think that might look good. It'll really might look good. We'll see about that. Again, we'll work as we go and take our time. And if we have a good idea, we put it on the back burner and say, maybe I'll do that. But we won't do it quite yet. Paper's still wet. We just did our mountain range here with the purple and the blue. Definitely we don't want to start going in and doing anything else to this. So it's usually you have to work in, sections, or you work around the painting. We always do that here. We work around our painting, let things dry, come back. And right now our mountain range is drying, that purple and blue. Let's let that dry, and then maybe we'll do something more in between that mountain range and the fields. But for right now, we can move on. We'll do a little more details maybe to the windows. So I'm going to look at the windows. I might get a smaller brush. I have a smaller brush somewhere. Here we go. So I have a little bit of a smaller brush here. Before I do that, let me put the shadow in. So I'll use the number 6 Raphael again. We'll do our shadowing. It's pretty dark. So we're going to go with French ultramarine blue, purple, burnt sienna to get a little warmth to it, some raw umber too up here just to and I'll skip a spot or two. Shadows are darker on the red, so the darker shadow is going to be on the red, and then across the white portions of the window that becomes lighter shadow. So we'll do the darker first, and the same thing down here. Shadow is much more dark under here. So I'm noticing that the dark shadow goes to about here. We'll keep it true to the picture. This is really fun when you're doing the shadows. It's great. You just have a great time with this. Raw sienna. Add some warm spots here and there, maybe some red. The red's already on there, so on the actual siding itself, so we don't have to worry about adding red, but definitely we're going to have the mineral violet and the French ultramarine blue and the raw umber. We're going to have that for sure on the main dark shadow, and then we're going to put I'll make sure my shadow goes across here. Now what happened was I noticed when I was looking at my picture that the shadow there we go. So I just took some paper towel, folded it in a sharp point like this to lift it, just because I went over an area where that wasn't in shadow. I have my paper towels and tissues on hand right next to me at all times when I paint. And purple, French ultramarine blue, raw umber. All right, so that's burnt umber and French ultramarine blue and purple. All right, that really looks great. That shadow makes the painting really. It makes the light in the picture and the painting look really believable and strong, like it's a really bright sunny day. So adding that dark shadow there, you'll see it has got that great look to it. Over here, we will do a shadow over here. Same thing, burnt umber, burnt sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, purple. I use Winsor Newton ultramarine violet for my purple. And this works the same too. There's going to be a shadow we'll do across the windows. Once this dries, we'll do that. If you go over a spot, you can always add some titanium white later. And again, this is really coming along fantastic. Let's not get overtired and start having issues. Let's take another break. We've already been working 15-20 minutes. And again, come back and join me. Hey, if you're new here, you're watching this, you're excited, you like this, great. Please consider subscribing. Also hit the notification bell. You'll know when our next video is coming out. We're always here once a week, every week, creating new paintings, some like this, some more simple, all different subject matter. You'll notice we do flowers, we do landscapes, we do buildings and scenes like this of beautiful shopping scenes and countryside scenes, cityscapes. We do, again, boats, the whole gamut we do here. So let's come back in about 10-15 minutes, and again, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on anything. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. All right, we're getting back into gear here and we're getting set to go. Let's get started now on, I think we can do the shadowing now across the windows. Let's try some cerulean blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and a little bit of raw sienna. It's transparent. That's a transparent, somewhat transparent yellow. And we can so I'm going to place some shadow across here with that cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and a little bit of the raw sienna. I mix a little bit at a time so that I don't over do it with the tonal value, the dark and light aspect of it. It should remain it should, you know, pretty much cool. We don't want to go a little bit of a raw sienna too is okay. That's good. And I'm just trying to maintain my focus here so I keep to the, usually I'll start one line and then just work from there, make sure that I'm going all the way across on the same level. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to try to keep that same level for the shadow. That's how it is. So I started here. The posts have less shadow on them because they're closer this way. So if you can imagine, this porch overhangs about 6 or 8 feet off of the building coming out towards us, and those posts are at the edge of that roof area. So that means the light is different as far as the shadowing goes. This back wall over here has more shadow because it's underneath this roof. The posts are closer to us, and that means they're not going to have as much shadowing. Okay, that looks good. Same over here. This over here is not so critical. That's sort of a picture. Over on the side here, people will look over here that are looking at our paintings. They're going to look over here too and go, oh, that's interesting over here, but we don't want to put too much information over here because this is really our main focal point here. Okay, that looks good. Now I would say I'll pick up a larger brush. This is a number 8. I'll get some fresh water. So when I do my sky, I definitely want to use fresh water. And I'm going to use a cerulean blue. The sky's going to be really mellow. I'm going to go really light with the sky. Some cobalt blue, French ultramarine, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, just to, so we'll have a little bit of darker spots, but for the most part, pretty light. Let's go with a light sky. Then what I'll do is I'll just put some water on a few spots on the paper. Not everywhere, just a few spots here and there, and then we can go in and we'll work our wash. And I'm not gonna get too worried about the details here, just if we go on the roof with our wash, it's probably good just to get a tissue and wipe up once we go on to the roof area, then just blot some of that water off. We don't want the roof to become too wet where the water starts to like flow and ruin the effect that we created earlier. So I think if we just mix things up a little bit here and there, we have some cobalt over there, some cerulean over here. We leave some white spots, keeping it light. That looks good. And then we go with a little bit of cat orange, just a little tiny bit. I rinse off my brush, dry it off a little on the tissue, and then I just mix it in a little bit here and there. Not too much water though. And if I see a spot, okay, so now at this point we wouldn't try to do any of the limbs of these trees here. And these trees, so that would be, we have to wait till this 100% completely dries, the sky color. We can work on the windows a little. And we can work on the fence. And I think we'll be pretty much completed. So let's work on the windows a little. Windows are cerulean blue for the shadowing. And then there's some raw umber we can mix in there for a little darker. A little bit of French ultramarine blue maybe. I'll do the darker first. And I'm not going to be too worried about getting every exact detail. I'm just going to try to get the main feel for this. I think the less careful we are, the better it's going to look, so I just get in that shadow, those shadows there. Then there is a little bit of a darker shadow there. Let's go with some French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And this is Okay, and I see a shadow along the right side here, so I'm just going to go down that way like that. Then there's a couple. There's some curtains. And that's good. And I'm just doing a few very sparse for the shutters. And so that's good for there. And we'll do below here is and I'm just going back and looking at the picture. And I'm going to mix up my darks, burnt umber, burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue. Good. Then there's a window up here. There's another window here. This is kind of painstaking, you know, that's why I take lots of breaks. If I'm eventually going to probably go over a few lines like I did there, but that's not a problem. That actually looks good. It looks good when things aren't perfect anyway. And these windows are and if you can capture that dark and light right at the shadow line there, that looks really good. Okay, we're I think that looks good. Let's take another break. We'll come back. We'll do our fence and our trees, and that'll be it. We'll have everything completed. Maybe a few more details over here. We can do these over here, and then just maybe a couple bit of window panes here. that's all. And okay, let's come back. Just a second, I'm going to take a 10 or 15 minute break. Okay, we're back. I took about a 10-15 minute break. Let's work a few details in here. Something I saw when I was just a couple shadowing for the siding here. So these are clapboard siding. All we need is a few here and there. We can make a couple darker. So this is where we would go, you know, a few dark lines here. A couple light ones. We'll use a little bit of titanium white to do a couple highlights. But that's plenty enough to... This is... The key here is to avoid doing too many, just a few in strategic locations like that. Plenty enough. Here, maybe a few, just I'll just do a few like that, just so we have that feel of the okay, that's good. And let's do our trees here. So we have some raw umber, burnt umber, raw umber, some cerulean blue. We'll make sort of a little bit darker mix there. So we kind of have a mixture of really dark, medium, and then a lighter tonal value here. And not too much water. And then we'll just... I'll follow the lines here. So this is sort of a darker, some of the darker lines here. And I would go very light. I wouldn't do too much with I would just, you know, a little. That looks pretty good. Maybe a few. I see some darker. Good. And I changed this around in the picture. have noticed that. There was a really large pine tree next to this building here. I wanted to go with more of a lighter feel. So again, artist liberty. Does that make sense? When you're creating a painting, you can change things around to suit the look you want in your painting. You don't have to say, oh well, there's a pine tree right there, I have to paint that. Not really. You can adjust your painting and paint it the way you want to paint it. You're the artist, right? You're the creator. You can create your painting the way you want to. And that's how we work here. That looks good sometimes, to just have some of the branches. Like that. I'll put a darker shadow over here. There was some shadowing on this gazebo here. I'll dry off my brush on a tissue. So I'll pick up some paint, dry off some paint and water, and then just do a couple, just so we have that feeling of some shingles on this gazebo here, like that. And the same thing up here. We can always go back in and do some couple lines real loosely, real quickly, not spending any more than a minute, just to get some lines on here, just to, and then a couple vertical lines too, like that. That's all. And some more over here, same thing. No more than 30 seconds here. Get some parallel lines. Then just a few little dash marks going vertical dash marks. Like that. All right, we're almost complete. Let's see, one more thing we have to do is we're going to get our brush here, our flat brush. We'll go quicker on this. So we're going to take same colors we've been using. Cerulean blue, French ultramarine blue, some burnt sienna, and a little bit of sap green. And we'll pick up some, we'll use our flat brush, our square brush. You can see how it's has a nice chisel point on it. And we'll just quickly do these. Some blue. Then we'll go into the warmer colors, the browns and the reds, just to Then we can take this and raw sienna, purple, and we'll just do some So I'm just doing some shadowing along the front of the fence with some purple and raw sienna, just to, you can blot up if you do too much, that's not a big deal. And then we can So I'm going to make this just a little bit of a sidewalk here. A little bit of the orange. Burnt umber. French ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, sap green. I rinse my brush off, a little bit of burnt sienna. And maybe I'll try to just do some shapes here. Okay, there's some shrubs here. And we'll add some cadmium lemon yellow to those. And I'll do some splashing. Then we'll take our titanium white, Winsor & Newton titanium white. We'll add a little bit of yellow ochre to the paint, so that it's a little bit of a warm white. Titanium's pretty much just plain white. It doesn't have a lot of hue to it. It's just white. And what we can do here is add a few details. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so that's on the porch area, and then this here too. Now also, I forgot to mention, there's railings on this. So I wanted to get in those railings, and they don't. It's just a matter of putting them in so that we see that they're there, but they don't have to be at all detailed. Or you saw how quick I did that. I just did one line across here, and then some vertical lines haphazardly. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to have a ruler to just get some vertical lines in. And a horizontal line for the top of the railing. And maybe in a few spots you can And I'll make a few just shapes, you know, maybe some, I'm thinking of maybe some different things that could be on here on the porch area, of like some antiques and things. And here, this is, I meant to do this. I went over that before. All right, I think that's plenty. We could do some more details over here. You know, we could do some darker darks, maybe some of these areas here. Underneath the and you could also put up a sign if you wanted to in the front. You can create your own sign. That's another thing where you can be creative and come up with your own ideas. Maybe put up a sign on the roof, one of the roofs, upper roof here, or a sign on the roof over here by the door. There is a sign on the fence here. I did not put it in. I just I didn't put that in, but you know, you can create your own ideas too as you work on this painting, and when you're drawing it, pencil drawing it, you can add in your own sign if you want. Somewhere in the picture, you could decide where it might look good. But other than that, I think we're 100% complete. Let's we'll peel off the tape here and just again, you saw this painting in the beginning of the video, so but we'll just zoom in a couple minutes here. And I'm tired because we've been working on this for at least almost 2 hours. And I worked on it last night for about another 2 hours. So this is a lot of work. Take your time, as much time as you need to get the feel and the look you want. You can do it, you can create this painting the way you want it. You can do less details. You can do more details. It's up to you. But I hope that's really a good feel for this location. It's a beautiful antique store, curtains and lace, and out in Pennsylvania, beautiful Pennsylvania, Lancaster. Everyone, thanks again for stopping by and watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.